Good morning and welcome to the joint meeting of the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means and Senate Committee on Finance. Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Senators Buck, Canizaro, Dondero Loop, Neal, Wynn, Stone, Taylor, Titus, Assembly members Anderson, Backus, Brown-May, Dickman, Hafen, Hibbets, Howdigi, Koenig, Mosca, O'Neill, Torres Fawcett, Watts, Yeager, and Chair Monroe Moreno.
And I am here. Will you please mark Assembly Member Torres Fawcett absent, excused, and Senator Taylor present when she arrives. I'll remind everyone to silence your electronic devices, either turn them off, put them on vibrate. Members will be utilizing their computers as we go through today's meeting, so do not take their looking at a computer as being inattentive. They are following along. We will have public comment at the end of today's meeting, and if you'd like to call in for public comment, that number is 888-475-4499. The meeting ID is 898-6231-1703, and then please press pound. We have budget closings today from the Department of Sentencing Policy, the Governor's Office, Agency of Nuclear Projects, and the Attorney General's Office. And before we get to public comment, we will have subcommittee reports from the Governor's Office of Chief Information Officer, the Department of Tourism and Cultural Affairs, the State Department of Wildlife, and the Silver State Health Insurance Exchange. So we do have a lot on the plate. I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday weekend and maybe got a little rest and was able to sleep in for an extra hour this morning. And we will get started by inviting staff to the table for the budget closing for the Department of Sentencing Policy. Good morning. You can start whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Chairman Monroe Moreno, Chair Dondero Loop, and members of the committee. I'm Tom Weber, Program Analyst with the LCB Fiscal Analysis Division. For the record, the Department of Sentencing Policy budget account is shown on page 3 of the closing packet and has not previously been heard by the committee. Fiscal staff is responsible for developing closing recommendations for this budget account. The Department of Sentencing Policy supports and assists the Nevada Sentencing Commission in making data-driven sentencing and corrections policy recommendations to the legislature. And the 27-member commission is comprised of lawmakers, representatives, and stakeholders from all areas of the criminal justice system. The Department of Sentencing Policy budget account is funded entirely with general fund appropriations. And there are no major closing issues in this budget account. And there are 5 other items, 5 other closing items as shown in the table on page 3. Fiscal staff recommends other closing items 1 through 5 be closed as recommended by the governor and requests authority to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you so much. Members, are there any questions on this budget closing? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So moved as read by staff.
We have a motion from Senator Dondero Loop, a second from Assembly Member Backus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you so much. We will close that budget and we will move on to the next one, the Governor's Office, Agency of Nuclear Projects, account 101-1005. Good morning. You can start whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. On page 5 of your closing packet is the Governor's Office Agency for Nuclear Projects. This budget account was heard on February 21st. There are no major closing issues. There are 4 other closing items. On item number 3 is a discussion of contract staff with outside counsel, which will be discussed in major closing issue 1 of the closing document for the Attorney General's administrative budget account. The fiscal staff recommends this closing issue be closed consistent with the closing actions taken in major closing issue 1 of the AG administrative budget account. On page 5 of your closing packet, other closing item 4 is related to the Appropriations Act. This is a request to allow language for the general, that the general fund appropriations for this budget account are available for both years of the biennium, and they may be transferred from one fiscal year to the other. This is language that is in the current biennium in the Appropriations Act, and the governor recommends the same language be included in the 2025 Appropriations Act for the 2025-27 biennium. Fiscal staff recommends other closing items 1 and 2 be closed as recommended by the governor. Other closing item 3 be closed consistent with the closing actions taken in the Attorney General's administrative budget account, and including language in the Appropriations Act as noted under other closing item 4, with authority for staff to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved as read by staff.
We have a motion from Senator Dondero Loop, a second from Assemblymember Backus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you so much. We'll move on to our next budget, is the administrative budget account.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. The next 17 budget accounts are related to the Office of the Attorney General. The first is on page 7. It's budget account 1030, AG Administrative Budget Account. On page 8 of your closing packet, there are 3 major closing issues. There is a table on page 9 that includes 24 new positions included in the executive budget, 2 new positions included in Budget Amendment A 25804-1030, which was submitted by the Governor's Finance Office on March 31st, 2025 to support the Department of Taxation, and 6 additional positions for dignitary protection, which were presented that were requested by the Office of the Attorney General at the budget hearing on February 21st, 2025, but not included in the executive budget. The positions are listed in the priority order as determined by the Office of the Attorney General. So that is the table at the top of page 9. The first major closing issue in this budget are the new positions. On page 10 of your closing packet, the governor recommends Attorney General cost allocation plan assessments of $2.6 million in fiscal year 2026 and $3.2 million in fiscal year 2027 to add 24 new positions with associated ancillary costs to provide additional legal services in the areas of health and wellness, public safety and infrastructure, and government support services. The first budget account is the Attorney General's Office Priority Number 2. Decision Unit E250 requests approximately $360,000 over the 2025-27 biennium, and the Attorney General's cost allocation plan is also known as AGCAP. So it's an AGCAP revenue for 1 unclassified Senior Deputy Attorney General to support the Medicaid unit due to the workload increasing as a result of the Medicaid rolls doubling since 2014. The new position would cover staffing shortages in representation at fair hearings for providers and recipients, Medicaid estate recovery and third-party liability cases, and regulation development, document production, hearings and workshops, inclusive of public opinion legal work. During the budget hearing, the agency stated that it currently has 2 full-time and 2 part-time attorneys dedicated to Medicaid that are unable to keep up with the work in client advice regulation and Medicaid estate recovery, and as Medicaid grows, the attorneys will continue to struggle to meet the needs of the division. If the position, there are actually 2 positions total that are related to this. If the 2 positions are approved, the division would be able to expand its capacity for legal services to the Health and Human Services Division beyond the hours provided in fiscal year 2024. While the current salary of an unclassified senior deputy attorney general position is $151,108, the salary for the recommended position included in the executive budget is $140,930. Therefore, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to correct the salary accordingly, which results in additional AG cap assessments of $21,988 over the 2025-27 biennium to fund the increased salary and associated benefits. Madam Chair, would you like me to stop in between each decision unit?
If we could stop with each decision unit and ask members if they have any questions, and then actually you go through. Then once we get to the decision unit, let's go through each one of those and take an individual vote on them since we have different votes. So let's go through the whole thing and get it all out. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. The number 3 priority for the Attorney General's office is on page 10 of your closing packet. It's Decision Unit E251. It's approximately $350,000 of AG cost allocation plan revenue over this 25-27 biennium for 1 unclassified. Deputy Attorney Generals are also known as DAGs. So for 1 unclassified Deputy Attorney General to support the Public and Behavioral Health Unit in Behavioral Health and Forensics. According to the agency, the number of statewide competency treatment commitments to the Division of Public and Behavioral Health pursuant to NRS 178.461 increased nearly 5 times since the statute was codified in 2007. At the budget hearing, the agency stated that the attorneys in the Public and Behavioral Health Unit are constantly in court, and multiple court and stakeholder meetings are requested weekly as the courts and communities attempt to address issues. The agency also stated that the Division of Public and Behavioral Health workload, which includes forensics matters, civil commitments, inpatient and outpatient behavioral health matters, and behavioral health and wellness matters, is impacting the time and ability to provide service to the Division of Aging and Disability Services. The agency indicated that the new DAG would represent the Division of Child and Family Services related to children's behavioral health, and they currently have 2 behavioral health attorneys managing over 250 court cases per month for forensics and civil commitments and outpatient treatment cases, and in fiscal year 2024, handled between 43 to 49 guardianship cases per month. The next decision unit is on page 11. It's number 5 of the Attorney General's priorities. It's Decision Unit E275, approximately $350,000 in Attorney General cost allocation plan assessments over the 25-27 biennium for 1 unclassified DAG for the Posted Convictions Division. The position would support an increase in legal work, case filings, and litigation, and according to the agency, the new position would address deficits in new state time computation, habeas mandamus cases, which have nearly doubled in 2023 compared to the number of cases opened in fiscal year in 2021 and 2022, also federal habeas filings and wrongful conviction compensation. According to the agency, the agency indicated that the new DAG position is needed due to attorneys working increased hours to keep up with the workload. The total number of annual cases have increased from 578 in 2022 to 697 in 2023 and 604 in 2024. The attorneys working approximately 2,898 hours per year, or 802 more hours than the standard 2,080 hours per year. The next decision unit is the Attorney General's Office Priority Number 20. It's the Decision Unit E276, approximately $360,000 over the 2025-27 biennium in Attorney General Cost Allocation Plan revenue for one unclassified senior DAG that would be devoted to nuclear practice with a focus on Yucca Mountain licensing and nuclear-related litigation to replace the legal contract work performed by one of the dedicated Nuclear Council contractors. The governor also recommends a companion decision unit in the special litigation budget account to reduce general fund appropriations by $239,287 in fiscal year 2026 and $1 million in fiscal year 2027 to reduce the outside counsel for nuclear waste litigation contract costs. The current contract for outside counsel for nuclear waste litigation is funded with general fund appropriations. However, the recommended new senior DAG that would replace the contracted counsel and focus on nuclear practice, including Yucca Mountain licensing and nuclear-related litigation, is recommended to be funded through the Attorney General Cost Allocation Plan. On page 12 of your closing packet, during the budget hearing on February 21st, 2025, the agency testified that nuclear waste litigation is specialized and the two separate outside counsel contracts are legacy contracts with legacy firms that have been in place for more than 20 years. The Office of the Attorney General did receive a letter from the Agency for Nuclear Projects on March 17, 2025, which was also provided to fiscal staff, requesting that the outside counsel be fully retained for the 2025-27 biennium due to the amount of time that it will take the new Senior Deputy Attorney General to be hired and to overlap the current skilled contract staff and learn the unique aspects of nuclear waste litigation after the incumbent is hired. The Agency for Nuclear Projects has also been in communication with fiscal staff regarding the concerns over canceling the contracts before the new Senior Deputy Attorney General position is hired and learns the unique aspects of Yucca Mountain licensing and nuclear waste litigation. This contract is shared between the Office of the Attorney General and the Agency for Nuclear Projects, and the Agency for Nuclear Projects recommends the contract cost be placed in the Agency for Nuclear Projects budget account instead of being split between the two agencies. While the current salary for the unclassified Senior Deputy Attorney General position is $151,108, the salary for the recommended position included in the executive budget is $140,930. Therefore, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to correct the salary accordingly, which results in additional AG cap assessments of $21,988 over the 25-27 biennium to fund the increased salary and associated benefits. The next decision unit is on page 13 of your closing packet. It is the priority number 11 for the Attorney General's Office. Decision Unit E277 is approximately $220,000 over the 25-27 biennium in Attorney General Cost Allocation Plan assessments for one unclassified legal researcher for the Criminal Prosecutions Division. According to the agency, during the budget hearing, the need for legal researchers varies from division to division, and while most divisions do not have them, the divisions that are most frequently in court do, which includes the Criminal Prosecutions Division. The additional legal researcher position would provide the division a ratio of approximately 10 senior deputy attorneys general and deputy attorneys general position for each legal researcher. The next decision unit is also on page 13. It is the priority number 6 for the Attorney General's Office. It is decision unit E278. It's approximately $360,000 over the 25-27 biennium in Attorney General cost allocation plan assessments for one unclassified Senior Deputy Attorney General for the Criminal Prosecutions Division due to the number of cases from the Nevada Department of Corrections continuing to increase, with the caseload anticipated to double from 2 years ago based on the current trend, as well as an increase in NDOC homicides. According to the agency, NDOC referrals increased from 71 in 2022 to 97 in 2023, and there have also been 6 homicides since 2022 that require experienced attorneys. The agency indicated that the 2 attorneys currently engaged in this work with a current caseload of approximately 43 to 65 cases respectively, and the new position would have a caseload of approximately 50 to 60 cases, which are currently assigned to other attorneys. While the current salary for an unclassified Deputy Attorney General position is $151,108, the salary for the recommended position included in the executive budget is $140,930. Therefore, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to correct the salary accordingly, which results in additional AG cap assessments of $21,988 over the 25-27 biennium to fund the increased salary and associated benefits. On page 13 of your closing packet is the next decision unit. It's priority number 8 for the Attorney General's office. It is the decision unit E300, approximately $220,000 over the 25-27 biennium for one unclassified legal researcher for the Post-Convictions Division to support the workload of the division, which currently has 1 legal researcher supporting 13 deputy attorneys general. According to the agency at the budget hearing, the Post-Convictions Division is typically in the appellate courts and very research-heavy due to the cases handled. According to the agency, legal researchers in the division are often researching cases that were litigated 15 to 30 years ago, including trials, retrials, and appeals. They are responsible for processing tens of thousands of documents, organizing binders, and other tasks. The office noted that a 20-year case can require extensive research, and death penalty cases are especially complex. The next decision unit is the Attorney General's Office priority number 7. It is decision unit E301, approximately $325,000 over the 25-27 biennium in Attorney General cost allocation plan assessments for 1 management analyst, a grade 33, and 1 accounting assistant, a grade 29, for the fiscal division's accounting unit to support the workload of the division. During the budget hearing, the agency testified that the accounting unit handles numerous transactions related to revenue, recoveries, and restitution, and no additional positions have been added in more than a decade. The agency stated that the accounting unit consists of 7 positions, 1 manager, 3 mid-level positions, and 3 accounting assistants, and these additional positions are needed to process payments in a timely manner, ensuring bills are paid within 30 days. These positions would assist the accounts receivable, accounts payable, travel and purchase order requests, as well as the management of budget, grants, contracts, lease agreements, data systems, billing, and cost allocations. Also on page 14 of your closing packet is decision unit E302. This decision unit is actually priority number 9 and priority number 15 for the Attorney General's office. The request is for 2 Attorney Generals supervising legal secretaries, grade 34, and 4 AG legal secretaries, grade 32, to support the general office. The priorities have been split. Priority number 9 and priority number 15 would each include 1 supervising legal secretary and 2 AG legal secretaries. The positions would partially align the ratio of 1 legal secretary for 2 deputy attorneys general, and also the ratio for legal secretaries per supervising legal secretary. During the budget hearing on February 21st, 2025, excuse me, the agency confirmed that the recommended new support staff are proportional to the new senior deputies senior deputy attorneys general and deputy attorneys general recommended in the other decision units, and if attorney positions are not approved, the support staff would need to be adjusted accordingly. The next decision unit in your closing packet is on page 14. It is the Attorney General's Office priority number 19. Decision Unit E304 is approximately $360,000 over the 25-27 biennium for one unclassified senior DAG for the Complex Litigation Division to assume a caseload of high valuation cases which often involve settlement and verdict dollars that impact the tort claim fund. While there are relatively few high valuation cases, their potential impact to the state and the possible damages that could result could be in hundreds of millions of dollars. While the current staff for an unclassified senior DAG position is $151,108, the salary for the recommended position included in the executive budget is $140,930. Therefore, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to correct the salaries accordingly, which results in additional AG cap assessments of $21,988 over the 25-27 biennium to fund the increased salary and associated benefits. The next decision unit on page 15 of your closing packet is the Attorney General's Office priority number 17. It is decision unit E304, approximately $145,000 over the 25-27 biennium in Attorney General cost allocation plan assessments for one administrative assistant, grade 27, for the Constituent Services Unit to provide timely responses and address public concerns due to an increase in the number of complaints from the public. During the budget hearing, the agency testified that the Constituent Services Unit, also known as CSU, receives thousands of communications over the last biennium, and many resulted in investigations and settlements. The CSU currently consists of 5 positions, and although each is required to process 20 complaints per day or 100 complaints per week, the unit is unable to keep up with the workload since an average of 500 to 600 new complaints are received per month. Also on page 15 of your closing packet, the next decision unit is priority number 4 for the Attorney General's Office. It is decision unit E305, approximately $390,000 over the 25-27 biennium for one unclassified senior DAG to represent the Department of Taxation to address a backload of approximately 40 taxation cases, a separate backload of modified business tax reclassifications, and substantial increases in liquor cases and daily advice as a result of growth of the department. During the budget hearing, the agency discussed the need for an additional Senior Deputy Attorney General to support the Department of Taxation due to the workload. On page 16 of your closing packet, on March 31st, 2025, the Governor's Finance Office submitted Budget Amendment A258041030, which recommends approximately $600,000 over the 25-27 biennium in Attorney General cost allocation plan assessments for 2 additional unclassified Senior Deputy Attorney General positions with associated operating costs dedicated to the Department of Taxation. The Governor's Finance Office also submitted corresponding budget amendment A257612361 for the Department of Taxation to eliminate the 2 general counsel positions included in the executive budget and instead add general fund appropriations of $182,798 in fiscal year 2026 and $413,480 in fiscal year 2027 for transfers to the Attorney General administrative budget account to support the new unclassified Senior Deputy Attorney General positions. The Money Committees approved Budget Amendment A257612361 in the Department of Taxation budget account on April 12, 2025, contingent upon corresponding actions by the Money Committees when closing this budget account. Fiscal staff recommends approving Budget Amendment A258041030, consistent with the committee's actions on Budget Amendment A257612361 in the Department of Taxation budget account. On page 16 of your closing packet are the next two decision units. The first one is priority number 12 for the Attorney General's office. It is decision unit E306, approximately $193,000 over the 25-27 biennium for one IT technician, grade 36 for the IT division, to provide desktop support for systems and network operations. The second one is decision unit number E307, priority number 10 for the Attorney General's office. It's approximately $206,000 over the 25-27 biennium for one business process analyst, grade 38 for the IT division, to provide desktop support related to system implementation, growth, and maintenance. For both of these positions, during the budget hearing, the agency testified that the two new IT positions are needed for implementation and maintenance of the systems operated at the Office of the Attorney General, including the upgrade to Pro Law, which is recommended in Decision Unit E311, and the constituent services modification, which is being done in-house. The agency stated that over the past 25 years, the Office of the Attorney General has not added IT staff despite increases in IT projects and technical support needs, as well as modern advancements in technology and cybersecurity demands. On page 16 of your closing packet is the next decision unit. This is priority number 18 for the Attorney General's office. Decision Unit E308, approximately $360,000 over the 25-27 biennium for one unclassified senior deputy attorney general to represent the Department of Corrections to support the workload of the division, which has the highest number of cases in litigation. The position would provide supervisory oversight to deputy attorneys general while assuming a caseload to bring overall assignments down to 35 to 40 cases per staff, assist in providing counsel on the NDOC's high volume of contracts, and assist the NDOC in public record requests and litigation, which have seen a steep increase in the need for client assistance and oversight. On page 17 of your closing packet, the agency indicated that there are currently 615 open cases for the NDOC, which averages 38.44 cases for each of the current 16 deputy attorneys general in the division. The addition of the position would decrease the caseload average to 36.18 cases per attorney. While the goal of the agency is a caseload of between 25 and 30 open cases, and due to the high caseload, the division has a high turnover rate. While the current salary for an unclassified senior deputy attorney general position is $151,108, the salary for the recommended position included in the executive budget is $140,930. Therefore, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to correct the salary accordingly, which results in additional AG cost allocation plan assessments of $21,988 over the 25-27 biennium to fund the increased salary and associated benefits. Also on page 17 of your closing packet is the Attorney General's Office priority number 22. This is the last decision unit in this major closing issue. Decision Unit E309 is approximately $640,000 over the 25-27 biennium for two unclassified compliance investigators and one administrative assistant, grade 27, for the Patterns and Practice Unit to assist the current workload and establish processes for future matters. During the budget hearing, the agency testified the referrals are being handled from beginning to end with one attorney. The administrative assistant position would receive, handle, and review referrals, and the investigators would investigate the referrals instead of the attorney. The compliance investigators are not sworn peace officers, while the other investigators within the agency are Category 2 sworn peace officers. For all the positions, during the budget hearing, the Office of the Attorney General testified that while the budget is currently built with all of the recommended new positions located in Carson City, The positions would be posted and recruited for statewide, and the agency has many chiefs that supervise staff in different locations. And at the bottom of page 17 is some vacancy information if anybody is interested. And I would pause there, Madam Chair.
That was a lot. Thank you so much, members. There are a lot of decisions to be made, so we're going to take them one at a time. And we will start with E250, and if staff would like to state what that decision is for each one, and we'll take a vote on each one as we go through it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So on page 18 of your closing packet is the decisions for the committee. So do the committees wish to approve the following? And I will take them one at a time and pause in between. The first one is decision unit E250, $358,321 over the 25-27 biennium for one unclassified senior deputy attorney general to support the Medicaid unit with the noted technical adjustment to add AG cost allocation plan assessments of $21,988 over the 25-27 biennium to correct the annual salary for the position. And as stated previously, all of the positions are funded with Attorney General cost allocation plan assessments.
Thank you so much. And I guess I should have said before we went to voting, we've been very meticulous in how we're expanding or not expanding in different units, and although there's a lot of decisions, unfortunately, we won't be able to say yes to all of them because we have to be good stewards with the people's money, and knowing the unknowns that we're dealing with is how we're going to cut and slice through all of this. So members, any questions on E250? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I would move to approve E250 as read by staff.
We have a motion from Senator Dondero Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries. We can move on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. The second decision for the committees is Decision Unit E251, $345,905 over the 25-27 biennium for one unclassified Deputy Attorney General to support the Public and Behavioral Health Unit to represent the Division of Child and Family Services relating to children's behavioral health.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve E251 as read by staff.
We have a motion from Senator Dondero Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. The third decision for the committees is Decision Unit E275, $345,905 over the 25-27 biennium for one unclassified Deputy Attorney General for the Post-Convictions Division.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I move to approve E275 as read by staff.
We have a motion from Senator Dondero Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. The fourth decision for the committees is Decision Unit E276, $356,321 over the 25-27 biennium for one unclassified Senior Deputy Attorney General that would be devoted to nuclear practice with a companion decision unit in the Special Litigation Fund budget account, which is budget account 1031, with the noted technical adjustment to add AG cost allocation plan revenue assessments of $21,988 over the 25-27 biennium to correct the annual salary for the position, and a reduction in general fund appropriations of $1 million in each fiscal year of the 25-27 biennium to eliminate the outside counsel for nuclear waste litigation contract costs in the AG Special Litigation Fund budget account 1031, and provide general fund appropriations of $1 million in each fiscal year of the 25-27 biennium for the outside counsel for the nuclear waste litigation contract as requested by the Office of the Agency for Nuclear Projects on April 15, 2025, to provide that funding in the Office of the Agency for Nuclear Projects budget account 1005, in order to provide overlap and train the proposed Senior Deputy Attorney General position.
Thank you so much. There were a lot of ands there. Members, did you get all of that? Any questions? Not seeing any. I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I would move to approve E276 as read by staff. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize, Madam Chair, if I can restate that. I move to not approve E276 as read by staff on each one of the separate motions.
Members, we have a motion to not approve E276 from Senator Don Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Moving on to E277.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. The next decision is decision number 5 for the committees. It's decision unit E277, $216,621 over the 25-27 biennium for one unclassified legal researcher for the Criminal Prosecutions Division.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? Not seeing any. I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I move to not approve E277 as read by staff.
I have a motion from Senator Don Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Moving on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. On the next decision for the committees is decision number 6. It's decision unit E278, $358,321 over the 25-27 biennium for one unclassified Senior Deputy Attorney General for the Criminal Prosecutions Division, with the noted technical adjustment to add AG cap assessments of $21,988 over the 25-27 biennium to correct the annual salary for the position.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions on E278? Not seeing any. I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I move to approve E278 as read by staff.
Second.
We have a motion from Senator Don Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Moving on to E300.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. The next decision for the committees is decision number 7, E300, is $216,621 over the 25-27 biennium for one unclassified legal researcher for the Post-Convictions Division.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions on E300? Not seeing any. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to not approve E300 as read by staff.
Second.
We have a motion from Senator Don Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Moving on to E301.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. Decision Unit 8 for the committees is Decision Unit E301, $324,583 over the 25-27 biennium for one management analyst, grade 33, and one accounting assistant, grade 29, for the fiscal division's accounting unit.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? Not seeing any, I'll accept a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to approve E301 as read by staff.
We have a motion from Senator Dondero Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Moving on to E302.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. Decision number 9 for the committees is Decision Unit E302, $1 million over the 25-27 biennium for 2 AG Supervising Legal Secretaries, grade 34, and 4 AG Legal Secretaries, grade 32, to support the general office.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I move to not approve E302 as read by staff.
We have a motion from Senator Dondero Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries. Moving on to E303.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On page 19 of your closing packet is Decision Unit 10. Decision Unit E303, $358,321 over the 25-27 biennium for one unclassified Senior Deputy Attorney General for the Complex Litigation Division, with the noted technical adjustment to add AG cap assessments of $21,988 over the 25-27 biennium to correct the annual salary for the position.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I would move to not approve E303 as read by staff.
We have a motion from Senator Dondero Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to E304.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. On Decision Unit 11 for the committees is Decision Unit E304, $144,202 over the 25-27 biennium for one administrative assistant, grade 27, for the Constituent Services Unit.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to not approve E304 as read by staff.
We have a motion from Senator Dondero Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries. Moving on to E305.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. Decision 12 for the committees is Decision Unit E305, $389,679 over the 25-27 biennium for one unclassified Senior Deputy Attorney General to represent the Department of Taxation.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to not approve E305 as read by staff.
We have a motion from Senator Dondero Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Moving on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Decision number 13 for the committees is related to Budget Amendment A 258041030, $596,278 over the 25-27 biennium for two additional unclassified Senior Deputy Attorneys General to represent the Department of Taxation, consistent with the committee's actions on Budget Amendment A 257612361 in the Department of Taxation Budget Account 2361, which was approved by the committees on April 12, 2025.
Thank you. Members, any questions on this budget amendment decision? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I move to approve this budget amendment as read by staff.
We have a motion from Senator Dondero Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries. Moving on to E306.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. Decision 14 for the committees is Decision Unit E306, $192,577 over the 25-27 biennium for one IT technician, grade 36 for the IT division.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions on E306? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to not approve E306 as read by staff.
We have a motion from Senator Dondero Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Moving on to E307.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. Decision 15 for the committees is Decision Unit 307, $205,922 over the 25-27 biennium for one business process analyst, grade 38 for the IT division.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions on E307? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I would move to approve E307 as read by staff.
We have a motion from Senator Dondero Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries. Moving on to E308.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. Decision 16 for the committees is Decision Unit E308, $358,321 over the 25-27 biennium for one unclassified Senior Deputy Attorney General to represent the Department of Corrections, with the noted technical adjustment to add AG cap assessments of $21,988 over the 25-27 biennium to correct the annual salary for the position.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions on E308? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I would move to not approve E308 as read by staff.
We have a motion from Senator Dondero Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Moving on to E309.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The last decision for the committees is decision number 17. It's Decision Unit E309, $637,959 over the 25-27 biennium for two unclassified compliance investigators and one administrative assistant, grade 27 for the Patterns and Practice Unit. Also, decisions pertaining to unclassified salaries and position changes will be determined by the committees when the pay bill is considered. Fiscal staff requests authority to make any adjustments subsequently required for all positions.
Thank you so much.
Included in this.
Members, any questions on E309? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I would move to not approve E309 as read by staff, but to approve the decisions pertaining to unclassified salaries and position changes to be determined by the committees when the pay bill is considered. Fiscal staff has the authority to make adjustments subsequently required.
We have a motion from Senator Dondero Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you so much. Moving on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. The second major closing issue in this budget account are position conversions, reclassifications, and full-time equivalent adjustments. The first decision unit is on page 19 of your closing packet. It is Decision Unit E320. This is priority number 21 for the Attorney General's office. The governor recommends approximately $410,000 over the 25-27 biennium, which includes $408,574. Oh, excuse me, that's total funding of $408,574. General fund appropriations of $164,832, and Attorney General cost allocation plan assessments of $230,815 over the 25-27 biennium to convert the existing unclassified chief investigator position from a state position to a contract position. The state position has been vacant since March 5th, 2025, and has been filled with contract staff instead of a state employee. According to the agency, the position is a key management role that oversees the investigation staff, and the Attorney General selected the candidate after conducting a recruitment, and the candidate accepted the position as a contractor. The governor reduced the salary of the existing unclassified chief investigator state position to $1 in the adjusted base budget, and recommends eliminating the state position with the $1 salary and replacing the position with contract funding in Decision Unit E320. If the salary for the position was not reduced in the adjusted base budget, the Decision Unit E320 would have a neutral fiscal impact, since the reduction in the cost of the salary and benefits for the position would offset the cost of the contract. The contract funding is recommended to transfer from the administrative budget account to the investigations unit budget account as part of the recommended centralization of investigator positions, which will be discussed in the major closing issue of the investigations unit budget account. During the budget hearing, the agency testified that the contracted chief investigator is committed to finishing out Attorney General Ford's term, and when the position becomes vacant, the office would pursue filling the position as the state unclassified chief investigator position instead of a contractor. If the conversion from a state unclassified position to a contract position is not approved, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to reestablish the salary of the state unclassified chief investigator position that was reduced to $1 annually in the adjusted base budget. The decision for the committees: do the committees wish to approve the conversion of the unclassified chief investigator position from a state position to contract staff? If the conversion from a state position to contract position is not approved, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to reestablish the salary of the state unclassified chief investigator position that was reduced to $1 annually in the adjusted base budget.
Thank you so much. Members, are there any questions? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I move to not approve as read by staff, but allow fiscal staff to make a technical adjustment to reestablish the salary of the state unclassified chief investigator position that was reduced to $1 annually in the adjusted base budget.
Thank you so much. We have a motion from Senator Dondero-Loop, a second from Assembly Member Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We can go on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. On page 20 of your closing packet is the Attorney General's priority number 16. Decision Unit E811 is approximately $40,000 over the 25-27 biennium in Attorney General cost allocation plan assessments to reclassify one unclassified legal researcher to a classified program officer, grade 35, step 10, to better align the position with its actual duties. According to the agency, rather than performing legal research, the position serves as the director of the Constituent Services Unit, overseeing responses to thousands of complaints monthly regarding deceptive trade practices, violations, and other breaches of law, and the position does not perform legal research work. Madam Chair, would you like me to stop between each one or finish? There are 3 decision units in this section, and then the decision for the committees.
You can go ahead and finish all 3.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next decision on page 20, decision unit, is priority number 13 of the Attorney General. Decision unit E815 is approximately $150,000 over the 25-27 biennium to reclassify one .51 FTE unclassified Deputy Attorney General that provides support to Health and Human Services to a full-time unclassified Senior Deputy Attorney General, resulting in an increase of .49 FTE to support the Medicaid unit. According to the Attorney General's office, the reclassification is necessary due to the difficulty in filling the part-time professional level position and the increasing needs of the client agency as its business grows. During the budget hearing, the agency indicated that not only is the part-time position hard to recruit for and fill, but the needs of DHHFs have increased, resulting in the need for the position to be increased to full-time. The last item in this section is priority number 14 for the Attorney General's office. It is decision unit E816. Approximately $40,000 over the 25-27 biennium, also Attorney General Cost Allocation Plan assessments to reclassify one unclassified Deputy Attorney General to an unclassified Senior Deputy Attorney General that was approved during the 82nd, the 2023 legislative session to support the Secretary of State's office. According to the agency, the reclassification would align the position to meet the intent of the position and the work performed. The decision for the committees: do the committees wish to approve Attorney General Cost Allocation Plan assessments of $228,865 over the 25-27 biennium to reclassify 3 unclassified positions, one of which would increase from a .51 FTE to a 1.050 FTE, resulting in a net increase of .49 FTE. Decisions pertaining to unclassified salaries and position changes will be determined by the committees when the pay bill is considered. Fiscal staff requests authority to make any adjustments subsequently required. And Madam Chair, that's actually 3 different decision units. So the E811 is the reclassification of the legal researcher to a program officer for the Constituent Services Division. The second one is the E815, reclassifying the part-time Deputy Attorney General to a full-time Senior Deputy Attorney General. And E816 is reclassifying a Deputy Attorney General to a Senior Deputy Attorney General in support of the Secretary of State's office.
Thank you, and being consistent in what we've done today, let's just do each one of them as a separate vote. So, members, are there any questions on E811? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I move to approve E811 as read by staff.
We have a motion from Senator Dondero Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Then moving on to E815. Members, are there any questions on E815? Not seeing any. I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I would move to not approve E185.
Second.
We have a motion from Senator Dondero Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus on E815. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor of not approving E815? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Nay. Motion carries. All right, long weekend. Moving on to E816. Are there any questions on E816? Not seeing any, I'll accept a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to approve E816.
We have a motion from Senator Dondero Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that motion carries. We'll move on to the next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. The last major closing issue in this budget account is on page 21 of the closing packet. This is the #1 priority for the Attorney General's office. The Office of the Attorney General presented a request for funding for dignitary protection at the budget hearing on February 21st, 2025 that is not included in the executive budget. Funded with Attorney General cost allocation plan assessments of approximately $1.9 million over the 25-27 biennium. It would fund one new Attorney General Criminal Investigator Supervisor position, grade 43, step 10, and 5 new Attorney General Criminal Investigator 2, grade 41, step 10, with related operating costs, including 2 vehicles. Currently, the Attorney General is utilizing existing criminal investigator positions to provide dignitary protection, thereby pulling those positions away from their primary investigative responsibilities. The agency states that they are having conversations with other entities in the state that provide dignitary protection to get a better understanding on how these operations are stood up to ensure that dignitary protection for the Attorney General functions as effectively as possible. The agency indicated that criminal investigator positions from 4 budget accounts currently participate in dignitary protection activities, and although the needs were occasional and infrequent in the past, the number of threats directed at the Attorney General have increased, and the nature of the threats have intensified in the last year. Fiscal staff would note that the Office of the Attorney General is seeking to use Attorney General cost allocation plan to fund assessments to fund the 6 requested dignitary protection positions and associated operating and equipment costs. However, AG CAP is a cost allocation methodology to recuperate revenue from state agencies for services rendered. Accordingly, AG CAP may not be an appropriate funding source for dignitary protection services. If this recommendation is approved, the committees may wish to consider funding this recommendation with general fund appropriations. The decision for the committees is on page 22 of your closing packet. Do the committees wish to approve funding for dignitary protection for the Attorney General, including 6 criminal investigator positions and related operating costs and equipment as requested by the Office of the Attorney General, but not included in the executive budget? And if so, do the committees wish to fund this request with AG cost allocation plan assessments of $1.9 million over the 25-27 biennium? Or do the committees wish to fund this request with general fund appropriations of $1.9 million over the 25-27 biennium?
Well, members, just a personal comment before we go to the vote. I hate the times that we are living in and that our Attorney General or any of our executive branch elected officials would have to make this request. However, I've been in this body now for my 5th session, and I've seen the danger and the threats increase for all elected officials. So it's really sad that we're in this position. However, I feel as we move forward, we're going to see more and more of these, and maybe what we're going to end up having to do, not this legislative session, but in the next or the following one, is just have a dignitary bureau that there to function for all of our constitutional elected offices. But with any questions that members might have, Senator Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A question for staff. Curious about a comment, and Madam Chair, I think this follows that comment about other constitutional offices. Do the other constitutional offices have dignitary protection other than our governor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division, through you to Senator Titus. Other than the governor, no, they do not.
And follow up, Madam Chair? Did the governor's office provide for any dignitary protection for the AG and his executive budget?
Thank you. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. Senator Titus, no, they did. No, the dignitary protection was not included in the governor's budget.
So the current, follow-up, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. So the current dignitary protection that he has been getting has been from folks that are technically assigned in other positions.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, to Senator Titus.
You can go direct.
Thank you. For the record, 70-day fiscal analysis division, yes, that's what was stated by the Attorney General's office.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just wanted to bring a comment up because I think sometimes we don't remember, and I believe it was, I think the first election or second, I think it's 21 and 23, where the AG actually had someone, while we were in session, break into or jump over the gate and try to get into his house. Like, I specifically remember that because I remember we were bringing a bill and we were talking about privacy and writing people their addresses so they couldn't be found in the assessor record, and it literally had happened that week. I also distinctly remember when, during the election cycle, that an opponent decided that they would make the statement that he should be hung from a crane, and that it was appropriate to cite to a racist epithet about hanging a black man in an election cycle. And so when we talk about the times and we talk about what has happened in this, I don't know if you call it political divisiveness, but people choosing and deciding to do behavior that we didn't imagine and have the courage to seek and harm folks' families and literally find their way to someone's house and the statements that have been made through these past 4 years, I think that it's worthy to have this conversation because I distinctly remember those incidents, and those are just the ones that I believe made the paper, right? And so I wanted to put those comments on the record because it elicited fear, I think, in all of us that someone is special enough that they believe in a theory that they will actually try to harm elected officials, and it's completely wrong. And we are in a state where we actually need to be focused on how do we protect folks when folks have pretty much lost their minds and doing things that are not rational behavior.
Senator Neal, thank you for the reminder. Some members that are currently serving were not on this committee and may not have even been in the legislature when some of those things happened. So thank you for the reminder. And it's we also remember the windows of our Secretary of State's office being shot at just a few years ago. So like I said, I wish we had the money to create a new division, dignitary protection division for all of our constitutional officers. This legislative session, we just do not, but I believe that's the direction this body should think about moving in the future so that everyone is protected in our constitutional offices. So are there any other comments or questions? Not seeing any, I will entertain a motion.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I would move to approve the funding for dignitary protection for the Attorney General, including 6 criminal investigator positions and related operating costs and equipment as requested by the Office of the Attorney General, and that the costs associated with the dignitary protection for the Attorney General's budgeted at $1.9 million over the 25-27 biennium be funded with general fund appropriations and not AG cap assessment, and that the funding for the dignitary protection for the Attorney General be provided on a one-time basis for the 25-27 biennium, and finally, to request a letter of intent be issued to the Office of the Attorney General, the Department of Public Safety, and the Governor's Finance Office to jointly study during the 25-26 interim the feasibility of creating an office for dignitary protection that would provide protection services for all constitutional officers and submit the results of this study to the Interim Finance Committee no later than August 1st, 2026.
Second.
Members, we have a motion from Senator Don Darrell Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Assemblymember Hafen.
Thank you, Chair, and I echo the concerns of my colleagues. I did want clarification on the motion. This would be a one-time appropriation and then come back during the interim to look at the bigger picture. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then if I may just follow up on that, I am going to support the motion today, but I did want to flag this for further discussion. Heaven forbid the economic forum come back much worse than most of us are projecting it to be already bad, because I do see the worthiness, but I did want to just flag it for staff for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Senator Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the component that I certainly understand concerns. I think we've all been threatened at various times in our career, and I agree that the political discourse has gotten worse. However, the one comment I can agree with on this, also agree with on the statement made by our other chair of committee, is that we do absolutely need to look at the broader picture, the safety and dignitary protection. So I support that, but I cannot support the additional positions in this particular motion, so I will be a no.
Thank you so much. Any other questions or comments? Not seeing any. We have the motion in the second. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay. If you'll raise your hand, we have Senator Titus, Senator Buck, Assemblymember Dickman, Senator Stone, or nays. The motion does carry. Thank you so much. Moving on to the other closing item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. There are 10 other closing items in this budget account. Closing items 8 and 9 are contingent upon approval of the centralization of investigation staff in the AG Investigations Unit budget account, which will be heard further in this packet. Also related to the investigations unit transfers is other closing item 10. The Office of the Attorney General identified 3 additional positions and operating costs funded with general fund appropriations of $1 million over the 25-27 biennium that were inadvertently excluded from the transfer decision units to consolidate investigation staff into the new investigations unit budget account. If the centralization of investigation staff and the additional positions and operating costs are approved in the investigations unit budget, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to also include the transfer of these 3 additional positions and operating costs. This would be net neutral fiscal impact because it would just be a transfer from one account to the other. Fiscal staff recommends other closing items 1 through 7 be closed as recommended by the governor. Other closing items 8, 9, and 10 be closed consistent with the committee's actions, providing the investigations unit budget account 1034, related to the centralization of investigation staff, including technical adjustments to reconcile the transfer decision units between the investigations unit and corresponding budget accounts, and request authority for staff to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you, members. Any questions? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I move to approve as read by staff.
We have a motion from Senator Don Darrell Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Moving on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next budget account begins on page 25 of your closing packet. This budget account was also heard on February 21st. It's the extradition coordinator. In this budget account, there is one other closing issue, Decision Unit E275. The governor recommends approximately $1.7 million over the 25-27 biennium to fund additional extradition costs. The adjusted base budget includes extradition costs of $1.1 million in each fiscal year of the 25-27 biennium, which is equal to the 5-year average of extradition costs paid from the extradition coordinator budget account for fiscal years 2020 and 2024. And there is a table on the top of page 26 that lists the expenditures for those fiscal years. With the additional funds, the governor recommends total extradition costs of $1.9 million in each fiscal year of the 25-27 biennium. During the budget hearing on February 21st, 2025, the agency indicated the extradition coordinator program is primarily reimbursements to local jurisdictions for intrastate transports and does not include in-state transports. In a follow-up response to a request for information, the agency indicated that costs for fiscal year 2025 are projected to be significantly lower than fiscal year 2024, which had a substantial spike compared to previous fiscal years. The Office of the Attorney General provided updated projections for fiscal year 2026 and 2027 of $1.5 million in each fiscal year based on a 5-year average, which is displayed in the table on page 26. As mentioned previously, combined with funding in the adjusted base budget, the executive budget includes total funding for extradition costs of $1.9 million in each fiscal year of the 2025-27 biennium. The agency's updated projections for fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27 reduced the total funding for extradition costs by $447,432 in each fiscal year of the 2025-27 biennium compared to the amounts in the executive budget, and that takes that total to $1.5 million in each fiscal year as opposed to the original $1.9 million in each fiscal year. The decision for the committees: do the committees wish to provide additional general fund appropriations to support extradition costs? If so, do the committees wish to approve A, general fund appropriations of $825,916 in both fiscal year 26 and 27 for total funding of $1.9 million in each fiscal year for the 25-27 biennium as recommended by the governor, or B, general fund appropriations of $378,484 in both fiscal year 2026 and fiscal year 2027 for a total funding level of $1.5 million in each fiscal year of the 25-27 biennium based on the updated projections from the Office of the Attorney General.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would move to approve B, the general fund appropriations of $378,484 in both fiscal year 26 and 27 for a total funding level of $1.5 million in each fiscal year of the 25-27 biennium based on the updated projection from the Office of the Attorney General.
We have a motion from Senator Don Darrell Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you. Moving on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. This budget account has 2 other closing items. The second closing item, the current Appropriations Act includes language that allows that sums appropriated to this budget account are available for both fiscal years of the biennium, and the governor recommends the same language for inclusion in the Appropriations Act for the 25-27 biennium. Fiscal staff recommends the other closing items be closed as recommended by the governor, including the inclusion of language in the Appropriations Act as noted under other closing item 2, with authority for staff to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I move to approve as read by staff.
We have a motion from Senator Don Darrell Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Moving on to the investigation unit.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. The Investigation Unit Budget Account 1034, begins on page 29 of your closing packet. The governor recommends transferring total funds of approximately $16.5 million over the 25-27 biennium, which is made up of general fund appropriations of $3 million and other funds of $13.5 million, to transfer 50 investigator positions and contract funding for the existing chief investigator position from various budget accounts within the Attorney General's office to new investigations unit budget account to centralize investigator positions. The governor also recommends AG cost allocation plan funds of $454,822 over the 25-27 biennium for 2 new investigator positions that are included in Decision Unit E320 that, according to the agency, were inadvertently excluded from the investigator position consolidation. The table on page 30 includes the positions that are recommended to transfer that are included in the executive budget, and the 2 the unclassified investigator positions are on the bottom of that table that are requested in Decision Unit E320. The agency indicated that although the investigator positions are currently in multiple budget accounts that are structured differently, the positions report to the same organizational structure under the chief investigator, creating disparities among the operations and assignments of investigators. According to the Attorney General's office, consolidating staff into one budget account would allow the agency to streamline processes, provide for cross-training, provide support coverage for staff and leave status, allow more equitable distribution of assignments, align available resources where they are needed, reduce overtime costs associated with the current structure, and allow for more comprehensive unit management. The investigator positions in the Medicaid fraud program are not included in the recommended centralization, and according to the agency, they do not report to the chief investigator. As detailed in the following table, on page 31, the transfer decision units recommended by the governor include the revenues funding the current positions and ancillary costs in the current budget accounts, including the AG cost allocation plan assessments and transfers from other departments. The executive budget does not include any recommended changes to the revenue streams currently funding the positions. The governor recommends that the existing unclassified chief investigator position be converted from a state position to a contract position, and that was discussed in Major Closing Issue 2, Item 1. If the committees do not approve the conversion of the state position to a contract position, fiscal staff would recommend a technical adjustment in this budget account to correct the state position. On page 32 of your closing packet, the companion enhancement recommendations are included in the other closing items sections for each of the other impacted Attorney General budget accounts, with the main discussion of the centralization of the investigator positions included in this closing document. If approved, fiscal staff would recommend technical adjustments as necessary to reconcile any imbalances in the corresponding transfers. During the budget hearing, the Office of the Attorney General stated that time and effort tracking is currently used in the grants unit budget account, which is budget account 1040, to properly cost allocate expenses to multiple programs, and the office intends to implement the same process for the investigations unit budget account, including the allocation of operational expenses that are not specifically charged to a particular purpose or legal matter. The agency also indicated that certain support positions and operating costs related to the investigations unit that were inadvertently excluded from the recommended consolidation of investigation staff should be included in the centralization transfer decision units. The agency has identified 10 support positions and certain operating costs currently located in 6 budget accounts that were inadvertently excluded from the transfer decision units, and they are detailed in the table on the bottom of page 32 and have a neutral fiscal impact due to the cost transferring from the other budget accounts. So the decision for the committees is on page 33. Do the committees wish to approve the transfer of general fund appropriations totaling $3 million and other funds totaling $13.5 million over the 25-27 biennium including 50 state positions and funding for one contract position to consolidate an investigation staff into the new investigations unit budget account as recommended by the governor. And if the committees wish to approve the consolidation of investigation staff, do the committees also wish to approve the transfer of other funds totaling $454,822 over the 25-27 biennium to include the new investigations unit budget account, to include in the new investigations budget account the 2 new investigator positions requested in the Attorney General's administrative budget account that were inadvertently excluded from the consolidation contingent on approval of the new positions. And if the committees wish to approve the consolidation of investigation staff, do the committees also wish to approve the transfer of additional general fund appropriations totaling $1.1 million and other funds totaling $1.9 million over the 25-27 biennium to include the investigations unit, to include in the investigations unit 10 additional positions and operating costs identified by the Office of the Attorney General that were inadvertently excluded from this consolidation.
Thank you so much, members. That was a lot. However, it seems like the common sense thing for the consolidation of the investigators' position. So are there any questions on this cost neutral? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would move to approve the total general fund appropriations totaling $3 million and the other funds $13.5 million over the 25-27 biennium. I would move to not approve that the transfer of the other funds totaling $454,822 over the 25-27 biennium to include in the new investigations unit account. And I would move to approve the transfer of the additional general fund appropriations totaling $1.1 million and other funds totaling $1.9 million over the 25-27 biennium to include the new investigations unit, 10 additional positions and operating costs identified by the Office of the Attorney General. That I was just going to add that we're inadvertently excluded. Thank you.
We have a motion from Senator Dondero-Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Moving on to the other closing items of this budget.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. There are 2 other closing items in this budget account. Fiscal staff recommends the other closing items be closed as recommended by the governor with authority for staff to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you so much, members. Any questions? Not seeing any. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved as read by staff.
We have a motion from Senator Dondero-Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Moving on to the grants unit.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. The grant unit budget account 1040, is on page 35 of your closing packet. There is one major closing issue. The opioid coordinator position is Decision Unit E253. The governor recommends federal grant funds transferred from the Division of Public and Behavioral Health Planning Treatment, Behavioral Health Prevention and Treatment budget account 3170, to add one unclassified regulatory manager position to serve as the opioid coordinator. That the Behavioral Health Prevention and Treatment budget account currently has contract funding of like amounts for a position that is recommended to be eliminated in that budget account. According to the Office of the Attorney General, the opioid coordinator has been a grant-funded position for 7 years, is a unique position for bringing law enforcement and behavioral health, and transitioning the contract position to a permanent state position would ensure the continuity of work between the Office of the Attorney General and the Department of Health and Human Services. The Office of the Attorney General states that the duties of the new regulatory manager position would not change from the existing position, but the structure of the position would change. The existing position is a hybrid position between the two offices, and there's currently a dual supervisory role, dual supervisory responsibilities, which would be eliminated. On April 6, 2025, the Joint Subcommittee on Human Services recommended approval of corresponding Decision Unit E253 in the Behavioral Health Prevention and Treatment Budget account, which would eliminate the current contract funding and instead establish authority to transfer the federal grant funds to the Office of the Attorney General to reimburse the salary and benefit costs of the recommended position. The decision for the committees: do the committees wish to approve the transfer of federal funds from the Division of Public and Behavioral Health of $332,887 over the 25-27 biennium to add one unclassified regulatory manager position to serve as the opioid coordinator as recommended by the governor?
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? Senator Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for clarification, so these federal funds, are they from the opioid settlement account or other federal funds? And if other federal funds, do we have those federal funds?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. Senator Titus, the funding for the position would be the same whether it is the contract funding over in public and behavioral health or if it was transferred over to the Attorney General's office as a state position. The funding would be the same. It is currently funded with federal substance abuse and mental health services, substance abuse prevention and treatment block grant funds, and opioid response grant funds.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, members. Any other questions? Not seeing any. I'll accept a motion.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I would move to approve as read by staff.
We have a motion from Senator Dondero-Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. There are two other closing items in this budget. Fiscal staff recommends the other closing items be closed as recommended by the governor and requests authority for staff to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? Not seeing any. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved as read by staff.
We have a motion from Senator Dondero-Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. And moving on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. The next budget account is the Attorney General Tort Claim Fund. It is on page 37 of your closing document. There are no major closing issues. There are two other closing items. This account was heard by the committees also on February 21st. Fiscal staff has worked with the Office of the Attorney General and the Governor's Finance Office to determine the funding split and ending reserve levels for the 25-27 biennium. The proposed funding split recommended to be used for the 25-27 biennium has been adjusted to 50.1% automobile liability and 49.9% AG tort, which is general liability civil rights, to keep the rate increases to the agencies at reasonable levels. The recommended reserve level in fiscal year 2027 is proposed to be increased to approximately $2.8 million. If necessary, funding is available in the Reserve for Statutory Contingency account for the payment of large claims during the 25-27 biennium, as was proposed by the governor. The revised rates that are a result of the changes would be vehicle liability would increase by 12.6%, and AG tort would increase by 17.1% compared to the fiscal year 2025 rates. Fiscal staff notes that the final rates may be adjusted based on the committee's closing actions on enhancement decision units in the paying agency budget accounts related to new positions and/or vehicles. Through consultation with the Governor's Finance Office and the Department of Administration Risk Management Division, a reduction in the excess liability insurance policy has been identified. Therefore, fiscal staff recommends technical adjustments to reduce the excess liability insurance policy by $120,108 in fiscal year 2026 and $429,509 in fiscal year 2027, and adjust the revenues and reserve levels based on the revised rates described previously. Fiscal staff recommends this budget account be closed as recommended by the governor, with the technical adjustments noted in other closing item 2, and requests authority for staff to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved as read by staff.
We have a motion from Senator Dondero-Loop, a second from Assemblymember Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Moving on to our next budget, the Special Litigation Fund.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. The next 12 budget accounts have not been heard by the committees. Fiscal staff is responsible for developing closing recommendations for the next 12 budget accounts. The first is Budget Account 1031. The Special Litigation Fund budget account was established for payment of expenses directly related to investigation, preparation, prosecution, and defense of suits unknown at the time of budget preparation, with certain expenses reimbursable by other state or county agencies. There are no major closing issues. There are 7 other closing items. Other closing items 3 and 4 are contingent upon the approval of Decision Unit E276 and the AG Administrative, Decision Unit 4. Other closing item 4 is contingent upon the approval of Decision Unit E276 in the AG Administrative Budget Account, Major Closing Issue Number 1, Item Number 2. Other closing item 5 is contingent upon approval of the centralization of the investigation staff in the AG Investigations Unit budget account. Other closing item 6 is also related to the investigations unit. 1 additional position and operating costs funded with other funds of $205,187 have been identified by the Attorney General's office as inadvertently excluded from the transfer decision units. If the centralization of the investigation staff and the additional positions and operating costs are approved in the investigations unit budget account, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to also include the transfer of this additional position and operating costs. Number 7 is Appropriations Act language. The current biennium, there is this budget account you can transfer funds between fiscal years. The sums appropriated are available for both fiscal years of the biennium upon the approval of Finance Committee upon the recommendation of the governor, and the governor recommends the same language for inclusion in the Appropriations Act of the 25-27 biennium. And then closing actions for this budget account are included in the summary page on the closing packet. Would you like me to stop between each of these staff closed budget accounts?
We can go through them all and take one vote at the end and answer any questions at the end.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next budget account is Budget Account 41. It is the Workers' Compensation Fraud Budget Account. Workers' compensation fraud is responsible for the investigation and prosecution of fraud committed by employees, employers, or medical providers against insurance companies or self-insured employers for workers' compensation, and is funded with the Workers' Compensation Safety Fund. It also this budget account also includes the Insurance Fraud Unit, which investigates and prosecutes insurance fraud cases, which is funded through insurer assessments collected by the Insurance Division. There are no major closing issues. There are 5 other closing items. Closing item 3 is contingent upon approval of the centralization of investigation staff in the AG Investigations Unit budget account. Closing item 4, closing item 4 is related to cell phones. There's a request for cell phones for 6 staff. The decision unit includes reductions in transfer of industrial relations of $1,148 in each fiscal year of the 25-27 biennium for desk phones through the Office of the Chief Information Officer, but inadvertently excludes the costs related to the new cell phones. Therefore, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to add transfer from industrial relations revenue of $2,880 in each fiscal year of the 25-27 biennium to correct this error. Other closing item 5 is additional, 3 additional positions and operating costs to transfer to the investigation unit, funded with other funds of $851,475 over the 25-27 biennium. If the centralization of the investigation staff and the additional positions and operating costs are approved by in the investigations unit budget account, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to also include the transfer of these 3 additional positions and operating costs. Continuing on to page 43 of your closing packet is budget account 1036, crime prevention. The mission of the crime prevention missing children's unit is to assist in locating missing children and protect children from exploitation. The budget account is primarily supported through general fund appropriations and fees generated by the sale of missing children license plates. There are no major closing issues. There are 5 other closing items. Closing item 3 is contingent on approval of the centralization of investigation staff into the AG investigations unit budget account. Similar to the previous budget account, item 4 is also related to the cell phones. It includes the reductions of general fund appropriations of $689,000 for the elimination of the desk phones, but fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to add general funds appropriations of $1,440 in each fiscal year of the biennium to add for cell phones that were inadvertently excluded. Other closing item 5 is additional operating costs funded with general fund appropriations of $33,534 over the biennium to transfer to the investigations unit. And if the centralization of the investigation staff and the additional positions and operating costs are approved in the investigations unit budget account, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to also include the transfer of these additional operating costs. Moving on to page 45 of your closing packet is the Medicaid fraud budget account 1037. The Medicaid Fraud Control Unit is a federally mandated program charged with the responsibility to investigate and prosecute Medicaid provider fraud cases, cases of patient abuse or neglect, and misappropriation of patient trust funds at medical facilities receiving Medicaid funding. The Medicaid Fraud Control Unit is funded with approximately 75% federal funds and 25% recoveries in general fund appropriations. Recoveries are funds which are received by the Office of the Attorney General and have federal Medicaid assistance percentage, also known as FMAP, and state Medicaid assistance percentage, known as SMAP, formulas applied. The FMAP of recoveries is sent to the Division of Healthcare Financing and Policy and is responsible for the management of the federal portion that it receives in compliance with federal requirements. The SMAP is retained by the Office of the Attorney General and used for the required 25% match in addition to general fund appropriations. Primarily due to the cost of living increases approved by the 82nd 2023 legislature, the reserve levels in this budget account are anticipated to be exhausted in fiscal year 2026, resulting in an increase in general fund appropriations needed for the required 25% match. There are no major closing issues in this budget account. There are 3 other closing items. Moving on to page 47 of the closing packet is the Consumer Advocate budget account 1038. The Bureau of Consumer Protection provides professional representation, public education, and advocates for consumers who utilize regulated electricity, natural gas, water, and telecommunication services. The Bureau of Consumer Protection also serves to protect Nevada consumers from unfair and deceptive trade practices, telemarketing fraud, and securities fraud through both civil and criminal prosecution both civil and criminal enforcement, and provides victim assistance, consumer education, and public outreach. There are no closing issues in this budget. There are 6 other closing items. Closing item 4 is contingent upon the centralization of the investigation staff into the new investigations unit budget account. Number 5 is related to the transfer of the Attorney General. There are 12 positions recommended to transfer to the Attorney General Protection Legal Account. Fiscal staff has identified a grants and project analyst position that was inadvertently duplicated in the transfer decision unit. Therefore, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to increase transfer from AG budget account 1045 and 1048 revenue by $128,249 in fiscal year 2026 and $255,846 in fiscal year 2027 to eliminate the duplication resulting in the transferring out of 11 positions. Number 6 is additional operating costs funded with other funds of $34,254 over the 25-27 biennium for the to be included in the transfer of investigations unit. If the centralization of the investigation staff and the additional positions and operating costs are approved in the investigations unit budget account, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to also include the transfer of these additional operating costs. Moving on to page 51 of your closing packet is the next budget account, Council for Prosecuting Attorneys, budget account 1041. The Advisory Council for Prosecuting Attorneys is responsible for developing and implementing prosecution training programs, assisting state and local prosecutors in conducting prosecutions, coordinating and developing of policies for conducting criminal and civil prosecutions, and coordinating proposed legislation for submittal to the legislature. There are no major closing issues. There are 2 other closing items. Moving on to the next budget account is on page 53 of your closing packet. The Victims of Domestic Violence budget account is budget account 1042. The Victims of Domestic Violence budget account includes programs relating to domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking and batterer treatment, and the Office of the Ombudsman for Victims of Domestic Violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking are also included in this budget. There are no major closing issues. There is 1 other closing item. The next budget account is on page 55 of your closing packet. It's the forfeiture budget account 1043. The forfeiture budget account was established during the 2015-17 biennium to receive funds from the United States Department of the Treasury Equitable Sharing Program. The funding in this budget account is anticipated to be exhausted in fiscal year 2025. As of April 6th, 2025, there was a remaining balance in the account of $1,651. And there are no operating costs. There are no ongoing operating expenditures in this budget account that would have to transfer to other budget accounts. The next budget account is on page 57 of your closing packet. It is the National Settlement Administration budget account 1045. This budget account was established during the 2011-12 interim, which provided the Office of the Attorney General a mechanism to provide for the general administration of the $87.7 million national mortgage settlement funds received by the state. According to the Office of the Attorney General, the one-time funding is anticipated to be exhausted in fiscal year 2025, resulting in the elimination of this budget account at the end of the 23-25 biennium. And as of April 6, 2025, there was a balance remaining in the account of $64,129. Moving on to the next budget account is on page 59 of your closing packet. It's the State Settlements budget account 1047. The State Settlements budget account was approved by the 79th 2017 legislature to be used by the Office of the Attorney General when settlements are awarded to the state and allocated to the Office of the Attorney General. These funds are deposited into the Office of the Attorney General's non-executive settlement budget account to be used in accordance with the terms of the specific settlement and as approved by the legislature. There are no major closing issues in this budget. There are two other closing items. Closing item number 2 is also contingent upon approval of the centralization of the investigation staff into the AG Investigations Unit budget account. The last budget account in your closing packet is budget account on page 61 of your closing packet. It is the Consumer Protection Legal Account, budget account 1048. The Consumer Protection Legal Account was established pursuant to NRS 228.333 to receive deposits of transfers associated with specific unrestricted legal settlements from the Consumer Protection Administrative Budget Account. And pursuant to statute, certain funds must revert to the Consumer Protection Legal Account to be allocated. 50% goes to the Office of the Attorney General or the Consumer Advocate to be used for consumer protection and efforts to prevent fraud. And the other 50% goes to legal aid organizations as specified in statute. There are no major closing issues in this budget account. There are two other closing items. The first one is the transfer from the Consumer Advocate. It's the 12 positions that were discussed in the Consumer Advocate budget account. Fiscal staff has identified a grants and projects analyst position that was inadvertently duplicated in the transfer decision unit. Therefore, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to decrease the transfer from the Consumer Protection Administrative account by $128,249 in fiscal year 2026 and $255,846 in fiscal year 2027 to eliminate the duplication resulting in the transferring in of 11 positions instead of 12 positions. And then closing item number 2 is 3 additional positions and operating costs identified by the Attorney General's office that were inadvertently excluded from the investigations unit transfers. If the centralization of the investigation staff and the additional positions and operating costs are approved in the investigations unit budget account, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to also include the transfer of these 3 additional positions and operating costs. On page 63 of your closing packet, as previously noted, fiscal staff is responsible for developing closing recommendations for the following budget accounts. And to assist it with the closing, fiscal staff has identified the budget accounts that are recommended to be closed as recommended by the governor and requests authority for staff to make technical adjustments as necessary. Fiscal staff recommends that the following budget accounts be closed as recommended by the governor and requests authority for staff to make technical adjustments as necessary. 101-1037, AG Medicaid Fraud. 101-1041, AG Counsel for Prosecuting Attorneys. 101-1042, AG Victims of Domestic Violence. 101-1043, AG Forfeiture. And 340-1045 AG National Settlement Administration. Fiscal staff recommends that the following budget accounts be closed as recommended by the governor and consistent with the committee's actions on the investigations unit budget account 1034, related to the centralization of investigation staff, including technical adjustments to add additional positions and operating costs that were inadvertently excluded from the transfer decision units, and reconcile the transfer decision units between the investigations unit and corresponding budget accounts, and request authority for staff to make other technical adjustments as necessary. Budget account 101-1031, AG Special Litigation Fund, including the inclusion of language in the Appropriations Act as noted under other closing item 7 and other closing item 4, consistent with the committee's actions on the administration budget account 1030, decision unit E276 related to nuclear waste litigation. 101-1033, AG Workers' Comp Fraud, including the technical adjustment noted in another closing item 4 related to the cost of cell phones. 101-1036, AG Crime Prevention, including the technical adjustment noted in other closing item 4 related to the cost of cell phones. 330-1038, AG Consumer Advocate, including the technical adjustment noted in other closing item 5 related to position transfers. 101-1040, 47 AG State Settlements and 330-1048 AG Consumer Protection Legal Account, including the technical adjustment noted in other closing item 1 related to position transfers.
Before we go to a motion, Ms. Day, I just want to say thank you. You've done a ton of work, and that was a great overview of this budget account. So thank you so much. Members, any questions on these staff closed budgets? Not seeing any. I'll accept a motion.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I will move to approve as so eloquently read by staff.
We have a motion from Senator Don Darrell Loop, a second from Assembly Member Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries. Again, thank you so much. So members, we did have subcommittee budget closing reports on our agenda. We are going to roll those reports because both houses need to get to the floor. They'll be added to one of our Saturday agendas, so just know that on a Saturday, you're going to be here a little bit longer than you thought you were. Don't know what Saturday that's going to be, but it's one in your future. So with that, we will go to the last item on today's agenda, and that will be public comment. If you're here in the audience in Carson City and you'd like to make public comment, I invite you to the table. I don't see anyone in Las Vegas. If you are joining us by phone and you'd like to make public comment, our number is 888-475-4499. Our meeting ID is 898-623-11703, and please press pound. I don't see anyone coming to the table here in Carson City for public comment. And there's no one in Las Vegas broadcast. Do we have anyone on the phone line that would like to make public comment?
Thank you, Chair. Our public lines are open and working. However, we do not have any callers for comment at this time.
Perfect. Well, members, again, thank you. Sorry about the long meeting and the long Saturday in your future. But with that, this meeting is adjourned.